Deshaun Watson and for the women who have made criminal complaints against him. A grand jury in Houston will finally take up the case. And I was on radio in Houston before the show started, and they're obviously very interested in how this is going to go. The reality is we don't know until we know what the motivation of the prosecutor is. We hear the phrase all the time, Charean, that a prosecutor can get an indictment of a ham sandwich if he or she wants. The flip side is a prosecutor cannot get an indictment of a ham sandwich if he or she wants. It all comes down to how aggressively, thoroughly, and zealously that person presents the evidence and tries to get the grand jury to either indict or not indict. Will the evidence be all of the worst stuff that these women allege that Deshaun Watson did? Will it be balanced out, maybe with information that Watson has made available that gets the grand jury to pause and say it's going to be difficult to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? So how this is presented tomorrow goes a long way toward determining whether or not he gets indicted, and specifically on felony charges. Because if he gets indicted on felony charges, nothing's happening with Deshaun Watson next week. No one's trading for him next week. He gets put on paid leave until the cases are resolved, and that's that. There's quiet confidence, though, among Deshaun Watson's camp that he's not going to be indicted on felony charges, may not be indicted at all. And if that's the case, I think he's traded by next Wednesday. You clear this criminal legal cloud from over Deshaun Watson, and he finally gets what he wants. The Texans get what they want, and some team out there that needs a quarterback gets what they want. And when you consider the gap from Russell Wilson Tuesday to Carson Wentz Wednesday, yeah, somebody's going to make a move for Deshaun Watson if he gets past the criminal cases tomorrow when it goes to the grand jury.
Well, and Washington couldn't make that. I mean, they could make the trade for Deshaun Watson, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, based on what they're going through now, to me, they couldn't make that trade. They had to go somewhere else to find a quarterback, and they did. But when you look at the options out there, he's the best option as far as physical ability, as far as the 3 Pro Bowls in his last 3 seasons that he played, all of those things. You think you can win a Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson. So if you're in that quarterback market, yes, he's the guy you probably want to try to trade for. And Mike, all the teams you laid out in your post today, they were all NFC teams, which, as we know, is what the Texans would prefer over an AFC team.
Well, the one AFC team I felt compelled to mention was the Steelers, because our good friend Sean King continues to say that he hears that Watson's interested in the Steelers. The problem is when Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette says all caps Steelers are not interested, that's coming from Art Rooney. I'm sorry to blow up your spot, Jerry, and give up your source. And I don't know for sure, but I don't think you go all caps or not unless it's coming from somebody who is in a position to not be overruled by anyone else in the organization, because there would be some merit to the idea of Deshaun Watson on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, so the teams that I've identified, the Panthers, obviously. They wanted him last year when both the criminal and the civil cases were completely unresolved and up in the air. He just wouldn't waive the no-trade clause for them. This is my question, Charean. If you're Deshaun Watson, do you view the Panthers differently now when you know Matt Rule's on the hot seat, Big Suit Ben McAdoo is your offensive coordinator? What's attractive about the Panthers now that wasn't attractive about them last year when they would have traded for you, but you said no?
I don't think there's anything attractive about the Panthers if I'm Deshaun Watson, except if that's my lone option to go play in the NFL next season, then I'm all over that. And it's a return to where he played college football, that general area, because he played at Clemson. But other than that, no. I mean, you look at their weapons on offense, there's a chance they could trade Christian McCaffrey, whether it's in the deal for you or a deal with someone else. I don't necessarily like their offensive line. You know, to me, there's not a whole lot to like, and you could be moving on from the head coach after this season. So that, if I'm Deshaun Watson, that's probably not my number one choice, Mike.
Seattle Seahawks are a team that saw Deshaun Watson in 2017 have the finest game of his rookie year. He also believes he tore his ACL in that game. It went fully and completely 4 days later, non-contact in practice. The Seahawks have the resources if they want to make the trade. But again, if I'm Deshaun Watson, do I want to step into a rebuilding project? Do I want to be on the 2022 Seahawks, which may feel a lot like the 2020 Texans? Do I really want to do that? I'm not so sure that I do.
Yeah, agree with you there, Mike. I mean, it's a rebuilding team. The coach is going to turn 71 shortly. So, yeah, that's not a team I want to step into. I think the only way you look at the Seahawks and you go, oh, that's a pretty good situation is the receiving core. I do like that receiving core. Other than that, you've lost Bobby Wagner on defense. You spent so much on Jamal Adams. You did get some picks back, obviously, for Russell Wilson. But you're going to give those up to get Deshaun Watson if you make that trade. So, yeah, that's probably not my first choice either.
There was some talk last year about the Eagles being interested in Deshaun Watson. Watson didn't seem to be interested in them, but they made it to the playoffs. Nick Sirianni did a great job in his first year as a head coach. They have a very good offensive line. Their defense is stout. They've got weapons. They're intriguing to me. Do you think that they would be intriguing to Watson, assuming the Eagles really would upgrade from Hurts to Deshaun?
Well, yes, I think that is a place that he absolutely should be interested in based on the talent that they have, based on what they did last season, based on the fact it's a great place to play with a great fan market. I mean, and you're in the NFC and you're in the NFC East, so you have a chance to win that division and win it very quickly and win it over multiple years, all those things, Mike. I absolutely think he should be interested in the Eagles.
Yes, I do too, no matter how he felt last year. And look, last year, this year, very different. You got to change your thinking on some things if you're Deshaun Watson, and maybe you have to soften on some teams that you previously weren't interested in. And the Eagles, by the way, were the ones who signed Mike Vick after he did 2 years for dogfighting, so they know how to deal with some potentially awkward PR by bringing in a guy who has a cloud hovering over him in that fashion. The Buccaneers, no Tom Brady. Deshaun Watson would allow the Buccaneers to continue to be a high-end contender immediately. I'm not saying he's Tom Brady. He's got a different skill set than Tom Brady. The offense would be different with Deshaun Watson. But to the extent the Buccaneers view themselves as a team that continues to be relevant and competitive and be among the top contenders in the NFC, Deshaun Watson is the only guy that gets them there. Of all the guys that are out there, who's going to get them there at this point? It's Deshaun Watson.
No, it's not Blaine Gabbert. We know that. And if I'm Deshaun Watson, this is probably my number one choice for multiple reasons. The problem with Tampa Bay is, do they have the compensation to give the Texans? I mean, when you look at a team like the Eagles that has 3 first-round picks this year, they can also get picks next year or beyond. But when you look at the Bucs with where they're drafting this year and the fact that they could win again next year, I'm not sure that's a place, if I'm the Texans, that I want to send him, just because I don't know that maybe it's just more picks, but I don't like where those where the first rounder is this year and where it could potentially be over the next few years, Mike, depending on how many picks you get.
The next team on the list currently has a quarterback who is due to make $35 million fully guaranteed this year. So it would be an easy financial swap for Watson, who's due to make $35 million fully guaranteed. Kirk Cousins, I'm not saying trade Cousins to the Texans, but we were kicking around earlier today the question of whether or not the Colts should want Kirk Cousins. The only problem is, if you don't get him extended, and he's got all the contractual cards right now, if you don't extend his contract, then you're doing a one-year rental. So what do you really get for him if you're the Vikings and you trade him? What do you give up for him if you're the Colts? And I could see a trade that maybe would bump up the compensation in 2023 if the Colts were to sign him to a new contract at some point next year. But, you know, I look at that because I look at the options the Colts have available now that they've traded Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, it's basically Carson Wentz, but his teammates like him. Everything else is Carson Wentz. That's no upgrade. So why not get a Kirk Cousins? You have the offensive line that can protect him and allow him to run the play that's called and not have the walls close in, and he can't function when that happens like other great quarterbacks can. Their defense is good. You've got Jonathan Taylor. The only step back is at the quality of the receivers, because you're giving up Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen for the Colts receiving core. But if I'm the Colts, I at least kick this around. And if I'm the Vikings, the only way I'm doing it is if I can thread the needle with Deshaun Watson, because that's the problem for the Vikings. Kellen Mond's not ready.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell wants to get started on the right foot. But it also solves the Vikings' dilemma, because the Vikings are currently in the mess of they've got Cousins for 1 year. So they're going to be in the what the hell are we doing at quarterback mode a year from now, either way. If they could get Deshaun Watson now, move Cousins to the Colts, There's a lot of merit to that.
Yeah, a lot of merit to that from the Vikings standpoint, Mike. And back to the Colts, I think it tells you exactly what they think of Carson Wentz, that they were willing to get rid of him and not have an upgrade in mind that they were going to get. It was just like, we don't care. Let's just get rid of him and we'll get another quarterback in here. Because I've always said, if you're going to change head coaches, if you're going to change quarterbacks, it better be to somebody better. It better be an upgrade. Otherwise, you don't do it. In the Vikings case, it better be Deshaun Watson if you're trading Kirk Cousins.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.